mistake the proposition makes in today's debate is in understanding the imperative. Because what they have to prove to us is not that their side somehow increases competition, which is a good in and of itself. They have to justify taking an expansive, really, really big right away from all corporations within this huge industry in order to justify an end. Insofar as they agree on their side that all of the things that we gave you to increase competition and to help out small companies would be effective and things that they would implement on their side, we tell you there exists no imperative anymore, and hence there is no reason to encroach on the individual rights. This is consistent with the principle that they give you throughout their speech, and this is the single point that loses them this debate. I'll be talking to you today about why patent protection reduces innovation, which is going to clash with a lot of material they give you. But before I do that, 3 questions of rebuttal. Firstly, on whether companies have the right to these products, to these patents. Secondly, on whether or not we get innovation on our side. And finally, these vacuous harms about how we're going to have exploitation in the supply chain. Firstly, on this idea of rights and that sort of thing, right? So first response is to say they need to justify taking away a right for an end. Insofar as we solve the end on our side, there's no reason to take away the right. That's the first thing they must deal with. Secondly, ladies and gentlemen, we think it's important to note that the entire first 3 minutes of the Prop 1's argument was rhetoric about how the person is more important than the corporation in general, right? No actual arguments here. Contrast that to Kate, right? She tells you that this is about people's hard work and inventing, taking risks, companies taking risks, and therefore they deserve the patent in the first place. Second response they give you, no thank you, is this bizarre conception of property rights, right? They tell you that the fact that you can have something and other people can't have it is somehow just totally wrong. That is the very basis of a property right, ladies and gentlemen, is that it's excludable, hence you can sell it to other people, hence they want it, right? We think on the basis that some people can have something and other people can't have it, it's absolutely no reason that you should take away rights in the first place. That's in fact the reason we give people these rights, actually. But secondly, ladies and gentlemen, onto these next level of responses, right? Because they gave us 2 in the second speech. They told us, one, that the reason property rights are different from other rights, property rights in other industries, is because of some vacuous idea of the collective good being different, right? So we tell you one, that is not even necessarily true in all cases, right? Having a better iPhone isn't necessarily going to improve your life very, very much, even if we accept this principle. But 2, just because something is valuable and you own it doesn't mean that you have the right to take it from that person, right? We don't think there's any reasoning why that should be the case. No, thank you. But finally, let's deal with this idea of tangibility. Because they gave us this, they told us, well, the fact that something that you've done relies on other people having done something before it means that you cannot own that idea, right? The problem with this argument is that literally everything society makes is based on the toil and work of people in past generations, right? The very cow that you have in the field or whatever is based on people before you tilling that field and making it fertile for soil. We think in that case, if this is a principle, they want to erode every single property right ever because it's based on someone else's idea or vaguely based on someone who came before you. Absolutely impossible to have an economy under their side. But ladies and gentlemen, when they tell us finally about this idea of how we need to have stricter regulations, and this is somehow a complete contradiction of their principle, they fail to understand that what we're saying here is that you have a property right. These are methods that we give you that don't infringe on that property right. Hence, we should go for these methods instead of something that does infringe on the property right. Don't let them get away with a vague argument about how we're making a random concession. Yes?
All the methods you talk about, like sanctioning, like increased antitrust, necessarily hyper-regulate individuals' property rights.
No, they don't, right? So for example, if we sanction you for doing frivolous lawsuits, we're sanctioning you for abuses against other companies, right? We're sanctioning you for taking away other people's property rights and harming that. That's exactly the reasoning we give you the entirety of the case. They need to engage with the argument, not with the headline. Secondly, ladies and gentlemen, on this idea of innovation, quickly, right? Because we think this is going to clash largely in our case, right? So firstly, they come up with this weird idea that you need small businesses because the big ones are fat, bloated, and lazy, I quote, right? So firstly, that is empirically untrue about the tech industry. Note that Facebook, Amazon, and all of these other huge tech companies are seen as having the most forward business practices ever, right? They pioneer things like, accessing more worker rights and that sort of thing to increase productivity. These are the furthest things from fat, bloated, and lazy. But also they fail to recognize these are the companies that pioneer, right? No one else is looking at self-driving cars, but the fat, bloated, and lazy companies like Google. We don't think it's consistent with the way the world works to say that this is true. No, thank you. But secondly, on this idea of small business, the government can't decide, we told you in Kate's speech how the government can't decide when a company is large or small, right? Firstly, we think you need to note that there's no real response to this except the government decides multi-billion dollar lawsuits, hence somehow through some vacuous logic you get the idea that the government is somehow competent in this. No response to the idea that these companies have massive incentives to corrupt government. Let's look at like other industries where this is supposed to happen, where things don't happen, right? We look at the example of like the telecom industry, where the fact that like a large company is set at a specific percentage is based on the companies that want to preserve the competition like that. For example, like telecom or whatever has like a 39% share because that's what it was before when the government tried to implement these anti big corporation measures, and thus they set it on that and keep it there. So finally, ladies and gentlemen, onto my substantive in today's debate about how we're denying patent protection reduces innovation, and we'll flag where this actually hits the arguments. 3 things to say here. Firstly, we think that patents put monetary values on ideas. What this means is you get a massive return for your investment in like creating the idea in the first place. Crucially, patents deal with the free rider problem in a way that no other thing can. That is to say, it stops companies from piggybacking off the hard work and innovation of other companies. No, thank you. Patents uniquely solve this. Second point of substantive, about how patents encourage openness and disclosure, right? We think it's important on their side, and this directly clashes with a lot of the stuff that they give you about innovation, that in order to file a patent under our world, you need to explain what your idea is, and others can then learn and like encourage and improve new spin-offs and ideas. The comparative on their side, is that, no thank you, smaller companies, because the second that they hit the scale of a large company, lose their patent, have the incentive to never tell anybody the secret to their technology. That means that you never learn how Google makes self-driving cars, because the second that is common knowledge, people take that away and go tomorrow to make a self-driving car without Google, right? We tell you that's incredibly harmful. No thank you. But secondly, lastly, ladies and gentlemen, we tell you that scale leads to innovation. And this is incredibly, incredibly important because it clashes with all the arguments they tell you about how small companies are needed to like exist for innovation in the first place, right? So we tell you that firstly, large companies won't invest in research under their side because like they already own everything. These are the consolidation arguments that Kate gives you about why corporations will simply merge into larger corporations rather than actually getting smaller, something that they never engage with on their side. What does this mean, ladies and gentlemen? It means that because research and development is costly, without investing large amounts in research and development, companies can't make new things, right? You can't make a new drug, you can't make a new self-driving car. Why is this important when it comes to scale? Because we think the way in which you innovate in the tech industry is not by supporting something that is super likely to succeed, but by supporting many low probability, high impact risks, right? You support all conceptions of how to make a self-driving car in the hope that one hits scale and makes it big. We think on their side this never happens because you have no incentive to have something hit scale because you lose your patent and you lose your value as a company. But finally, ladies and gentlemen, we tell you that on their side, smaller companies can just never do this because they can never afford to go 30 years without making any money on something like Google did with self-driving cars and virtual reality. We tell you on their side, they never get innovation. That's the sole point that they had left remaining. They lose this debate.